Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets. Interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages podcast. I am your host, Kim Wanup. Once again, I have ruined my voice. It's like I don't even need my voice for anything, and I just ruin it. I had a good reason, though. I was at the Eagles-Rams game, and they needed to hear me. So I thought I'd hurry up and get this podcast in as soon as I got home from the game, because I know by tomorrow morning I will not have a voice, probably. But it was worth it. To see my birds win, totally worth it. It felt like a home game. There were so many Eagles fans there. It was insane and very exciting, and just glad that we won. So yay, go Birds. See you in the Super Bowl. Other than that, I think I'm going back to work soon. So I've really put a lot on my plate of stuff that I haven't gotten done lately, and just been doing that. You know, it's like, oh man, I should have gone to the dentist. Now I got to do that. I should have went to that doctor. I got to do that, and kids appointments and their dentist and all that good stuff. So getting ready to go back to work. I have such a beef to talk about, and I know if I go off on this rant, no one's going to be happy with me. But I have heard, and I do believe it's going to happen, and we all know this is going to happen. I'm going to be brief. We all know that we supported the writers, we support the actors, we want everyone to be treated fairly, and we want everyone to get paid for what they deserve and feel good about their jobs, okay? But where do you think they're going to squeeze it from? Us. That's where they're going to squeeze it from. They're going to squeeze it from creative, and I've already heard stories of departments and prep days and just cuts already to us. And it's so disheartening, because all we want to do is get back to work and start to create, and barriers are going to be put up because of finances. And hey man, I'm not putting up the money either, but I knew it. I knew it. So it's disappointing. It's just disappointing that I think it's going to happen a lot, that budgets are going to be slashed, mandate power is going to be slashed, and it's all going to be more pressure on, let's say, I don't know, a set decorator who's just trying to get the set dressed for the first day of shooting. So it's, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. How about that? I'm going to cut it at there. Let me remind you again that the International Design Week is coming up at the end of October, and there are phenomenal events that they are putting on. And you can check it all out at productiondesignweek.org. There's so many. I can't even go into it, like a lot. Just hop on one of them. They have a ton of classes about how to run your art department, and Jen Pascal is moderating a panel. I got to moderate a panel. It's awesome. So I can't encourage it enough. I might not even go back to work yet, because I need to be a part of everything in that week of International Production Design Week. So yeah, there is also a little voices that are starting to get heard and want to be heard, and I am one of them as part of the Hollywood Set Decorators. And we are now, I did not start this. A bunch of wonderful set decorators started up this hashtag empty without us, because you know how the costumers had naked without us. And if you go on Hollywood set decorators on either TikTok and I'm sure Instagram also, you can see beautiful set dressing of before and after pictures and how spaces would be empty without us. So I think Beth Wook, a set decorator, is one of them who has put this together, and I couldn't be prouder of everyone's work, and just to show what exactly we do to the public visually is important. So you can check that out. And what else? What am I watching? Oh, I got the Sister Wives. Oh my God. It's so good. It's so good. I can't take it. It's so good. I just watched tonight's episode. Oofa. I really want to start a podcast about Sister Wives. Would anyone hate me for that? I think you would. I don't think you're a Sister Wives crowd, but I want to talk about it. I talk about their decor on my TikTok, by the way. If you want to laugh, I really dive into these people's houses, which I know isn't fair, but yeah. Other than that, I am just going to give you a little tidbit, because I've been talking up my own, I'm putting out a production design film study podcast and videos, and in the last 2 weeks, I have watched War and Peace. Yes, 1968, War and Peace. It's 4 different movies. It's over 6 hours long, and I mean, I know I'm not spoiling it. It's triumphant. It's amazing. The production design in that film is amazing. I cannot wait for you to hear the discussion about it. But I thought, oh, War and Peace. I never read it in high school or college or anything. Yeah, I'll watch that one day. And boy, I will tell you, I am glad I did. It gives me such joy to see these phenomenal sets and camera work and lighting and costumes. Oh, amazing. Such amazing work, and it's so inspiring. And it makes me want to get back to work, to a fully staffed department and fully powered manpower days. That's what I would like. In this episode, I chat with production designer Brandon Tonner-Connolly about 2 of his recent projects: the critically acclaimed series Reservation Dogs and the very long-awaited sequel to one of the scariest movies ever made, The Exorcist Believer. Working for the past 3 seasons on Reservation Dogs, Brandon's sets captured the realism of indigenous teenagers in rural Oklahoma. We talk about location work, the respect of designing for this culture, and saying goodbye to a series that has been a part of his life. He gives us a couple hints about the design of The Exorcist Believer, which was released this past weekend, and taking on the design of this legendary film. It was super nice to talk to him. I have not met him before. And we had technical difficulties for a week because he was in New York and all that flooding and rain. And so I was glad to catch up with him this week. And I definitely will be watching The Exorcist. I didn't get to watch it before this episode because it hadn't come out. And I like scary movies in October. I really look forward to like TCM and all the old scary movies, and The Exorcist is on there, so if you want to check out the original, but check out The Believer too. I hope you enjoy.
Maybe some commercials and stuff for the rest of the year. There's maybe a quick indie feature that might be popping up in Atlanta, but overall I'm kind of committed to centering myself for the rest of the year, and then getting into things in January. So
do you like location work?
I do. I think location work is kind of one of my favorite things about designing, actually, which, I do feel like one of my favorite things as a designer is just going to a new place and, hopping into a car and kind of driving around and scouting. But even before kind of officially scouting, just kind of getting the lay of the land and figuring out what the kind of visual landscape is like, and the cultural landscape also. So I do like working on location, and I love, factoring that in when I'm thinking about projects. And then, I mean, in terms of working on location versus stage, I also kind of like working on location as opposed to working on, stage is fun because you get to do what you want to do and, incorporate everything and work with the DP and figure all that out. But working on location is so much, so enjoyable also just because you get to actually interact with people who are outside of the sphere of like film and TV. And, you kind of have all these ideas that you might not necessarily otherwise have even thought of, when you're bumping into kind of real life and architecture and other things like that. And I think it kind of forces you to be creative as well, to disguise what you want to disguise, or to, to actually kind of add what you want to add to a location. So I'm a big fan of it.
It too, there's a layer that location work gives to your project too. I mean, we do that when we build the sets, but location work too, there's always like, oh, look at that weird, window over there that gave us this lighting opportunity, or this doorway that we have to, closed up, which now makes the room look much better, or something, it's like we're given these opportunities on locations that I think we all take advantage of, which is really nice.
No, exactly. And I like to take inspiration from the locations that I scout also. Like, I think for Reservation Dogs, a big thing was like, I hadn't spent too much time in Oklahoma, and I was scouting these homes that were very close culturally and location wise to the ones that we ended up using. So, I would just love to, when I'm scouting a house, actually ask people, hey, do you mind if I take a picture of, the family photos that you have on the wall, or of like the cereal you have on top of your fridge, or the Bible quote on the fridge, or different things like that, just so I can kind of get inspired by all those little details and then put them into our sets and kind of reconstruct them that way, so which is nice.
So how long were you there? You were there for 3 seasons of this, correct? I mean, how long were you in Oklahoma? Are you an Oklahomian now? Are you an okayed person?
An honorary Okie. No, I was there for, we basically, prep would start in like February, and then we would wrap it up in like the middle of like June. So, I was there for maybe like 5 months out of the year, 3 years in a row, which was interesting. I mean, I had never done like a TV show before. So I had never really had the experience of being like, oh, I'm going to come back to all this. Normally you do a feature and then you wrap and then move on. And then now it's like, oh, wait, like I get to come back and see these people and see, all these places again and get into that. So I actually really enjoyed that, getting able to, feeling like a family and like you're part of a community like that.
Well,
which I know you have a lot of experience with also.
Yeah. Well, too, I mean, what I like about it is the growth of characters and the growth of the characters in their spaces, and how we can do that, and like more pictures in the fridge, or like, oh, I don't like that poster in my room anymore, and they change it out, or subtle things like that where we can have growth with the character. I always really enjoy that too.
Totally. And I'm a big fan of your work, by the way.
Oh,
Veep and everything else, especially.
Thank
so no, but I mean, that is, you're right. That is a fun part, and how it's something that you hinted at in one season, you get to explore in the next season. And I feel like we try to do that in the show also, bring back, a couple of other smaller details or kind of smaller visual cues that, we may have briefly mentioned in another episode and didn't think we'd ever really get to explore. And then you're like, oh, actually, wait a minute, this would be the perfect opportunity for me to throw in this thing that maybe nobody will care about except for me, but I think is really funny or really fun.
No, the sets to me are so authentic because I dived a little bit into Native American research and everything on Rutherford Falls, and I worked with Jenna and Tesba on that show, and they were doing it almost at the same time. And I almost was like, I'm not gonna watch Res Dogs now because I don't want it to influence me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a half-hour comedy, and it's completely different. But in my mind, I was like, I don't want that. But Jenna was, like, super helpful and hooking up with, like, because we needed specific skirts and, like, things like that. And I became part of all the Facebook groups and trying to get authentic pieces and everything. So I know the struggle of that, and I know the preciousness of these items that they have in their tribes and communities and everything. So I wanted to talk about how you integrated them or those pieces into your designs, like the murals or like their bedrooms and things like that. I love their bedrooms, by the way. I love those.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. No, I know exactly what you mean about not wanting to watch it while you're doing the other show that, had
Yeah.
similar points where it's just like, I feel the same way when I'm working about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from the beginning, concept of authenticity and the concept of making sure that it felt right for the community. I'm a huge believer in that. And I read this quote by Lily Gladstone, actually, a couple weeks ago now, where she said, the work is better when you let the world inform the work. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that really summarizes some principles that I believe in. And from the beginning, I wanted the crew to be made up as many people from the community as possible, just to ensure that what we were doing kind of felt true. Within the art department itself and the set deck department, but also in terms of collaborating with artists from the community. Like, we had a mural done outside of the IHS, the kind of health clinic location, done by a local artist named Yannicka Starfields. And he came in and made this beautiful mural for us that kind of satirizes
is that the Wheatfield? Is that the Wheatfield one? The green?
Totally. Yes. That's the one where it's like you have these characters who are supposed to be like settlers, like gifting like medicine, like indigenous peoples. And it's really nice because it's done in like this strange perspective too, where, he's an amazing, accomplished and, incredible artist, but he kind of did this mural in the way where it's like the eagle that's in it looks kind of very flat, or you can only see that it has one eye. It all looks like somebody who, was from the world of the show doing it, not like a highly trained artist.
Right.
Do it, and that was really nice. And then Molly Murphy Adams, who is an amazing academic and beater, and bead artist. When it came time for us to use the beaded medallions and different things, like she was a big part of the show and came in and was able to help us out with that and kind of guide the way. And Johnny Dicon, who's a great artist, who's another kind of painter from that area. He came in and did this. I had a crazy idea based on something that I saw on a scout that was like, well, what if we added this buffalo mural to the conference room at the IHS or the break room? And, I thought it would just be kind of a very unsubtle idea. And he came in and made this incredibly subtle and incredibly kind of beautiful and moving, large scale mural piece that Alora Dannon sits in front of in an episode this third season. And so I think it was, just through kind of involving a lot of artists, both, outside the art department and within the art department, that kind of helped me maintain that sense of authenticity. And like you said, I mean, there are so many objects that are so kind of precious. And, I think working in Oklahoma, one of the challenges was there aren't really, prop houses, or there aren't really those kind of resources. But it's also kind of an asset because then, it's like, okay, it kind of forces you to actually, look into, renting things from people in the community or, sourcing things, a lot of Facebook Marketplace, a lot of, Craigslist, a lot of
there wasn't anything I could rent because everything I rented a lot when we spoofed Yellowstone, but there wasn't anything I could rent that was correct for their tribe, correct for the period, correct in any way. So that to me was like, oh, I gotta know my shit here. I had to know all these tribes. Even though it was a made up tribe, it was still of these three, and it could only be from this area, and even just color placement on the beads and everything tells you where the tribes are, or the blankets and the symbolism and everything. So it's very intricate, and I appreciate so much how you and the decorators really, meticulously have a lot of detail in there to tell the story behind these people. I love it.
No, thank you so much for that. That means a lot to me. And I feel like, our decorator in the third season, Tava Sampson, she was the assistant decorator for the first two seasons and was a big, part of those as well. And she, has relatives in that community. It's specifically in Okmulgee, where we shot a lot of the show that's supposed to be occurring. And, that was great just in terms of making that connection and making sure that what we're doing really kind of rung true, and that we were getting things that, that you really kind of were sourced from the place that you're kind of trying to create, from the world that you're trying to create. Yeah. So that was nice. And I feel like we did this thing on the show where, obviously creating the sets, we were thinking about the viewers and like the people at home also. But just because everything was so intertwined, and because on the crew and the cast and everybody was it felt like such a community making the show. So specifically to that community, we were also kind of equally thinking about the people who would be there, like when we were shooting it. So like the crew from the community, or the cast, or the people down the block who might stop by to watch filming, which, everything was always kind of very open. So, I really wanted them to feel like the spaces were right, and that, they were kind of being affected by the choices that we were making in a positive way. So, I mean, to that end, like season 2, we did Mabel's house, which is Laura Dannon's grandmother's house. Yeah. And that was like kind of a bottle episode all in, her house. And Mabel, her grandmother, is dying kind of on her deathbed. And so the community has really come together to kind of send her off. And the whole episode is going to be just Laura Dannon dealing with that, and also dealing with having so many people in the house, and, making sure that she's kind of being supportive and doing the right things. And so, just with that, we knew that, the mood had to be just right, both, what came across on screen, but also just for the performances as well, and for everybody who was kind of in the house. So we wanted to make sure that the objects that we had decorated it with kind of resonated with the cast and the crew, and especially Mabel's bedroom.
Her bedroom is fantastic. I have a picture of it. I was like, oh my God, look, they got the I was like, oh yeah, the stickers and this. And like, I kept looking at it because I screenshot it, and then I found a good picture of it. And then I was like, oh yeah. And then the mismatch, and then there is a quilt on the bed, but it's not like, it doesn't stand out like she has a quilt, but like there's one there. It's very subtle. And I just was like, damn, this is good. This is really good, this bedroom.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah. No, that's, I think that room was really important just because of what was going to happen in it, obviously. And
Did you paint that?
Yeah. Painted the room.
It's deep purple. It's a deep, deep purple, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And painted that. And, we kind of relied on a lot of, well, it's funny, Tava was really instrumental in that, obviously. She kind of, it's funny, like the photo that you see in, well, I guess we had one thing on the wall that we called the board of hunks. That was like, basically like she had found it at her aunt's house. And her aunt lives around there, and it was like photos of like John Bon Jovi and like Marlon Brando. And like, so we were like, oh, this like actually exists. And it's like such a nice way to have like, in this somber scene and in this somber space, have like somewhat of like a little bit of like a goofy personality kind of indicator, and talk about the character a bit and what she might have been like when she was younger. And so we cleared that and put that there. And otherwise we actually, we asked the crew if there was anyone in their family who had passed that they wanted to honor. And we kind of received this original painting and artwork from Neosha Pendergraft, who's in the prop department, and her mother is an artist. Oh. And so she gave us a piece of her mother's who had passed away. And we put photos in there from Lauren Waters, who was in the casting department, and Tava's father. His like school photo is the one that's in like the lampshade, kind of like right next to her bed. Yeah. So we kind of had to, we tried to include as many of those authentic details from people who were on the crew as possible, just to make it, emotionally viable.
I looked at those pictures on the lampshade and I thought, fuck, that's good. But wouldn't they get really hot? Like, I started to analyze it as like, I don't know, they must have seen that in someone's house and did that, because to me, I'd be like, I'm not putting pictures on here because they'll get hot and burn or something. Like, I was drawn right to those pictures on the lampshade. I'll tell you that right now.
No, I think you're totally right. And that's kind of, I think we actually had that conversation also. We were just like, wait a minute, like, isn't this like plausible? Like, is this? And then we're like, actually, no, like, we did see this in somebody's house. Yeah. Like, that works. Like,
the research you get from going into people's house is fantastic. Yeah. And someone who's lived there a long time, which I'm assuming when you went to locations there, people had lived a long time in these places. Did you build any of them, or are they all location? Because that's hard.
No, sorry, what were you saying?
Because that's hard. Like, if you didn't have any builds, like, what were your builds the community home?
Yeah, it was all actually. So basically, all of those home interiors are all on location, which
Wow.
is, kind of how they start off in the very beginning. Which is, I mean, on the one hand, it was great because, you get the feel for the space. And also, those houses are all part of, tribal housing. So it's housing that's subsidized by the tribe. And the layout is very similar, if not identical, through like all of the houses in the neighborhood. So I felt it was, it's nice to actually have that, and that,
Yeah.
okay, anybody who knows, what this layout is or who grew up in that house will kind of feel, okay, this is authentic. Like I feel at home in here. And, talking to some of the showrunner and a couple of the people that are like, yeah, like it's basically like, you go over to your friend's house and you know where the bathroom is because it's the same layout as like your home. So that was nice. But, on a practical level, it was, I mean, you know how it is. You're basically
So
kind
tight.
of, when you're on a stage, it's great. But when you're on location, it's like
So tight.
every single time you're moving in and out, you have to move the homeowner stuff out, dress everything,
I feel
then,
so bad.
restore it.
I feel so bad sometimes.
So that was just
logistically.
so that was just logistically a challenge over and over. But which, kind of strains your logistics otherwise, because you're like, again, if you're on a show and you have stage time, then you're kind of like, all right, that's our home base. Like we get that time on per episode. Exactly. Yeah. So, but for us, it was always like, okay, so today's 3 locations, tomorrow's 3 locations, the next day, 2 locations. That's our home base. That's like our break. So it was, and then it was the last season, the 3rd season, we ended up doing a lot more construction and scenic work, and kind of ended up, still kind of doing things on location, but, building like Maximus's greenhouse, or, kind of completely redoing the interior of like an old hall for the dorm for the boarding school, or, all kinds of things like that. So, but all those fun interiors.
What about Uncle Brownie's house? I love that pitch roof or walls, and then the headers, and I was like, maybe this is, but it looks right to outside, so I'm like, it's got to be a location.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is a location. And, it's funny. We scouted around for a while for that, and then found that kind of A-frame cabin. And initially I was like, man, I wonder, and I, asked Mark, the DP, Mark Schwartzbard, who's amazing, the DP, and was such a friend to the art department, and also just such an amazing collaborator.
He's really good. The show is emotionally lit really well with what he does. Yeah.
No, definitely. And, just said like, okay, are you going to think I'm crazy if I take you to this place? Are you going to like laugh at me? Or are you going to say, this is impossible to do this? And, no, he loved it. And we kind of went up there, and Sterling and everybody else, the showrunner and everybody else kind of loved it. And, kind of embraced the fact that, okay, it's an A-frame. So we're going to get this kind of different shape at the same time. That's going to limit ourselves spatially, but we get also to look straight to the outside and get, that kind of natural light coming in that way, and get to be able to kind of see the world outside and do that. And something about it felt kind of very Uncle Brownie like, also almost like cave, or almost kind of like very kind of small, and and kind of dug in that way. So, and then we had so much wall space to play with also, in terms of like posters and different things too. So,
you have tons of pictures and articles, and then that like giant like chief's head, which was amazing pieces. The decorator did a fantastic job. I love it.
Yeah, the decorator that first season was Imogen Lee, who was amazing, and Taba was her assistant. And they completely kind of crushed that one, and had so many great details, like great family photos just culled from, Taba's family or from other people's family in the crew, and other things like that. So, just so many. And I mean, for me, I think I love VHS, and I love all those kind of like cultural kind of like objects. So whenever it's like we get the chance to like fill this out with like VHS and records and like other things like that, I'm like, yes, bring it on. Like, I like to stay there for like 3 hours after everyone leaves, like hand selected VHS tapes are like in the forefront and everything. So that was really fun. That was a really fun one to do.
Do you shoot? Is this like 8 days? Is it like an 8-day shoot with like a day overlapping day, of course, as we all have become accustomed to?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, basically it was 4-day episodes. So we were shooting an episode in 4. I know, I don't want to startle you for anyone. But,
you did. My jaw is dropped. Wait a minute. Did you block shoot?
We no, we didn't really block shoot at all. We kind of, we had, so let's say if it was a 10 episode season, we'd shoot 2 episodes. We'd have 5 blocks and 2 episodes per block.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we didn't really go back and forth. We didn't do any block shooting. We weren't like, all right, let's shoot everything in bears here.
Oh no, that's what I meant. Like by episode, like 2 and 2 and 2, like blocking it out that way. Yeah, but so wait, so. You had 4-day episodes and you kept going back to these locations. Could you keep some dressing there? Or did you have to undress every time?
Really every time it was undress, dress.
I
know.
Oh my God.
And it was
I'm
funny,
out.
like
I'm out. Don't call me. Don't. I mean, it's done, but like, oof, that is a lot. Because these sets are so layered. Like, it's not like, oh, we're just throwing a bed in there and like, oof.
No, it was a real test of endurance. The lead crew, especially, what a bunch of heroes, just kind of doing that over and over again. And we get to the point where, in the end, I'd be like, do you guys even need the restore photos anymore? Like, you've done this like 10 times. Like, aren't you just doing this like based on memory at this point? And they'd be like, yes, for the most part. Like, they know exactly where, the homeowners like bread box is and everything. So.
Well, that's some good dressers. You had a good crew then. That is an endurance run right there. every like 3 weeks redressing like 6 sets. It's like, oof. Are you sad that it's done?
I am really sad, actually. Yes, I didn't, I didn't think that I would be sad. I thought that I would be like, because I'm used to being like, all right, whatever, like we wrap the feature, we move on. I'm going to be sad for a little while, then I'm going to move on. I'm going to be fine. And then I'll be on to the next one. But I think, wrapping that, I was like, oh yeah, this was like 3 years of a commitment to this thing, which, kind of really piled up and in a very specific place. It's not like I was shooting in New York or something like that. I was
isolated, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for that, it was kind of like, okay, I am sad to not have that to look forward to. I'm sad not to be like, oh, okay, in a couple months, I'll go back to Tulsa and hang out with Sterling and hang out with, all these people and do that and kind of do this again. So that was it. But I think it was, the right time for Sterling and for everybody to kind of move on. I think he said, it's a coming of age show and like they have to come of age at some point. And it's like, yeah, that's true.
I was really surprised ending at 3. I could see like doing 4 or something, especially because it's so popular. I was really surprised that it ended and bummed because I didn't watch it. And then I was like, oh, and then I've had this time off and I caught 2 episodes like in the springtime and I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back to this because it's right up my alley because it's kind of like sarcasm and realistic. Like I really liked it, and then just like binging it in the last couple of weeks, it's like it's such a good show. I'm really bummed it's over. The actors are so authentic. It's crazy that they're acting to me. It just seems so natural and almost like a documentary, and just the realism that you've put into the sets and the lighting and the costumes. And I know all about it's just really, it's a really good put together show. It's something to really be proud of. I loved it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. No, I mean, that's so nice to hear you say that. And I feel like, that's the goal in terms of that sense of realism and authenticity. And, just to never, ideally have it be questioned. And it's funny, when I was doing another project between like seasons 2 and 3, somebody who's working on that project with me was like, oh man, you do Reservation Dogs, and expressed that they're a big fan of the show and they really like it, and that they love it. And the world seems so real and authentic. And they were like, don't take this the wrong way, but like, what do you do? Like, what do you actually do?
See, that's a compliment. That's the biggest compliment.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's how I take it.
I always say that. Like, if they were like, oh, you shot that all in a hospital? No, it was an empty room and we made it a hospital. Like, that's the compliment. That's the best part. I mean, obviously this is more than a hospital, but yeah. No, that's great.
It's not.
Okay.
No, I was going to say it's nice to see like everybody, like the actors, even like kind of grow from like the first season to like the third season. And like Deborah Jacobs, who plays Laura Dan, and like to have her go from, the first season to like writing the second season, and the third season writing and directing an episode and everything. Awesome. It was cool to be able to work with her in that way.
Really awesome. How, I forget what I was going to say. I got distracted by the Laura Dannon thing because I caught that. I caught that it was a Willow reference, and I actually had to look because I heard them say her name, and then I was like, that can't be a Laura Dannon from Willow. Like, I looked it up, and then I like saw somewhere on some like fan page about like the whole Willow connection and everything. Did you put any specific, was there written in to put Willow stuff in there or anything?
No. Not really, no. I think that there was, it was never really written into adding those elements. I think we just, we tried to keep it subtle. Like we had like, Willow VHS in Brownie's house somewhere, like prominent. And I think for the second to last episode of the third season with Ethan Hawke, her father, we joked around, like, should we have like a Willow poster, like, or like some other, like a Ron Howard poster, like, or some other, kind of directed film poster in his house, and decided that it was kind of too much in the end. But there was always the temptation to kind of add those little Easter eggs.
Do you look back? Do you have a favorite set that you did over the seasons?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, there were so many kind of favorites to get into. I mean, I think one thing was, okay, I'll pick one from like the earliest season and one from like the most recent season, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Probably, the first one that I really enjoyed, the first one that we actually made for the show after the pilot, when we got into it, was the IHS. And that was kind of really special because it was an environment that like, it was instantly recognizable to people from the community, yet I had never really seen something like that specific space on TV or kind of like in a movie. So we had the opportunity to really kind of create something a little bit new there. And, talking with each of the writers, they each had a story about spending a day like endlessly waiting at the IHS, and drew on that for the episode. And so we kind of wanted to, at the same time, we wanted it to be a warm space. People actually go there, to hang out and have coffee and talk and everything at the same time. And so we wanted to give people the feeling when they were watching it that it's like, okay, you want the viewer to feel kind of lost and tired and bored, but also kind of a little bit sort of warm and, communal in there. And so, we designed the color palette with these kind of, interesting, I thought, kind of like non-traditional hospital or non-traditional kind of like clinic colors that still kind of faded into like a little bit of like a feeling of malaise at certain points. And then, we had these cheerful PSA graphics, which Sterling called uselessly optimistic, like these anti-diabetes posters that are all in the real spaces. And we had to create those and make that, funny enough, but also, identify that it's kind of a sad thing also at the same time. Just kind of like, balance that edge to it. And, IHS also, we had an opportunity, like I said before, to collaborate with Yatica to do the mural outside, and Johnny Dyke kind of do the mural inside. And Ben Brown, who's an artist and graphic designer from Oklahoma, also, he kind of created this Spirit Anatomy poster for us that's in the background of a scene. The first season where Spirit's actually in the exam room, and on the wall behind him, there's this poster that's Spirit Anatomy, and it's kind of like a human anatomy poster, but instead it's all the various, significant elements that make up his life force, all those different cultural objects and everything.
I didn't see, I can picture that scene even, but I can't picture the poster. Damn, I gotta go back.
No, it's pretty subtle. It's pretty subtle. It's kind of like on the wall behind him. And, Ben really did an amazing job with it, kind of as nobody else could have, or certainly as like nobody, from outside the community really could have nailed it. So that was a favorite set just because we got to collaborate with so many great people. And also, we got to kind of establish a new sort of space on screen in that, which was nice. And then, I mean, I'm tempted to say the boarding school for the most recent season, but it's obviously such an emotionally heavy space. It was definitely the most construction and scenic work that we had kind of put into any set, for the 3 seasons. But I think, maybe Maximus's was kind of my favorite, just because Maximus is like, we shot it at the very beginning of season 3, and we really had to scale up to build the world of Maximus and his compound. And I got to scout a lot of different properties until I ended up seeing one with this decrepit house that was about to fall over, and then realized that could kind of tell a story where, he had lived in the house with his parents, and then after they had died, the place had kind of gone to disrepair. And when it was too bad, he moved into this trailer next door. And that seemed like it fit with kind of Sterling's conception of the character and everybody's conception of the character. And, so we were able to kind of build in that backstory to it. And then, we had to transform this derelict trailer interior, build a greenhouse with all these eggplants, build this stone walled tin roof shed for all of his.
It's an intricate build. I mean, it's an intricate storyline that you had to weave through the set, I must say. It's a lot.
And that was really cool. What was fun about it too is that, okay, we have this property now. Like I had to find a place that gave us the opportunity to build all these different elements, and they have to be close because logistically we need to be able to move from thing to thing during the day when we're shooting. We're going to have 2 days to shoot all of this stuff here. But also aesthetically, it's got to seem like it's kind of spread out a little bit and they're not kind of right next to each other. So, just finding that space was great. And then, you're right. It was such an intricate world to kind of visually realize, which was what made it fun also. And, I think that property just offered us so many great things, like not only the house that looked like it was, perfect for our purposes, or kind of just added another element to it. But also there was this one kind of gnarled tree that really sort of like had branches that kind of sunk down into the earth in front of it and had this natural kind of opening. And it just had this kind of mythological quality to it that I was like, oh, hopefully we can kind of incorporate this. And Tasba, the episode director, loved it when we scouted it and wanted to incorporate that in as the, part of Maximus's route around his property. And I just thought that was really cool. I gave it this sort of almost storybook quality.
Yeah, definitely.
But also the whole set itself is like, it's kind of like the set itself is kind of like a magic trick, because when Bear wakes up in it, you have to feel a little bit afraid and feel like, okay, he's kind of been kidnapped by this madman and he's in this derelict trailer. But then later in the episode, you kind of have to feel like, oh, but it's actually this elder space and it's kind of warmer and more welcoming. And you can see Bear kind of like melting into it a little bit. And, we couldn't really change anything in the space midway through. So we just had to be like, okay, the broad strokes are going to be this, antique wallpaper that's really kind of vintage. And we're going to add this wood paneling that kind of makes it texturally a bit diverse. And, maybe also just gives like a visual imprint of the passage of time in there, and with all the newspaper all over the windows and everything else. And then at the same time, once we get into like the intimate character details, then it'll kind of tell the story of like, okay, this is a man who's a community elder who's living by himself, and this is what he, does every day in the kitchen. These are his like small idiosyncratic rituals that he kind of like only he knows about and then only he gets into. So it was really fun.
It's a great set, and it's a great piece of storytelling through the design of it. It's also a very I think we have these sets in our careers that we think back to, and I have some of like, oh yeah, like when I did that makeup mirror for this, and we did the postcards, or blah, 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 like, or we did the drawer, or I did the drawer with the president's letter, like you get so into these details and the story that you're making up for these characters. It seems like that's going to be like definitely something to look back on and be like, oh, remember when I did that? Yeah, let's try to implement something like this. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. I think it's always nice to try and hold on to those things that you have from every project, or especially the sets that mean so much to you.
But nobody else is, so you got to do it. You got to do it. You're your own one-man parade here.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone quickly forgets, but
I know. Well, they do and they don't. I mean, that is the kind of genius of like, especially something like, it's going to be on Hulu forever. Probably, it's like create these things and then they're there forever. It's awesome in a sense.
Yeah.
That's
the great part of working in film and television. It's just like the things that we're doing are going to last, essentially forever, so people can watch them.
Can I ask about The Exorcist? Speaking of like having like, God, I don't know if I'd ever touch that project. I'd be like the Exorcist. I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, was it at least fun doing horror?
It was fun. It's funny because really like the way that all of it timed out is like went like from the Exorcist to like start this last season of Reservation Dogs, and there was like like no kind of time in between, so it went straight from like really dark horror and like all this stuff to like, okay, now we're in Oklahoma and we're back into this world of Res Dogs and jump into it, which was a strange transition. I think The Exorcist was fun, and one of the things that attracted me to the project is I love horror movies, and obviously I have so much respect and love for The Exorcist, which is just a great film, let alone a horror movie or a horror film or anything.
Yeah.
And William Friedkin, of course, such an amazing director, and so and I also have so much respect for for David Gordon Green for his movies, and to get the opportunity to work at a totally different in a totally different world than Reservation Dogs and then other things that I've done, to get the opportunity to work with David, and to work on kind of a project that references the original but is also kind of very much in its own world. I mean, there were so many times when I was just like, wow, I can't believe that I'm working on The Exorcist right now. Like, how insane is this?
That's what I would be like. I'd be like, I can't believe. I mean, I have. It came out today, so I haven't seen it. The only thing I can ask you about while watching the preview and everything is always when you work with horror, the color palette. Because you're either gonna and working with the DP, so that's kind of the only thing I don't know anything about sets or anything, but to me it's always striking about like how do you keep this darkness, but it's gotta be realistic and light, and it's a house. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was a conversation, David and I talked about that a lot, and Mike Simmons and I, the DP, kind of talked about that a lot, and the costume designer also, Liz Wolf, just talking about, okay, how do we make sure that it doesn't feel like a haunted house, or that it doesn't feel like, anything that's like a Disney version of any of this. Like, right. We want to make sure that it feels kind of grounded in the characters, and that it feels kind of, that there's a sense of reality to it there. And I mean, I try to approach every project like that. And I think that especially with this one, it's like, okay, we want to make sure that it's like grounded in the character's choices. So it's kind of like I'm, usually talking to the director, and I was talking to David in this case about like, all right, obviously, how long has this character lived here? Like, was he living here with his wife at some point, before it was just him and his daughter? And, who made those decisions about decorating, and like, was it a family member's house before that? Was it somebody that, something that he and his wife, bought and moved into? Are they renting? Are they own? Just what is the actual history of the space? And, letting that determine, okay, well, it makes sense that there would be some older kind of wallpaper along this section over here that maybe he just kind of never really tended to, or that maybe kind of suggests, the person who was there in the space before him, that sort of thing. And just trying to ground all those choices, within the actual kind of characters and their decisions. And then, for me, I usually feel like also color palette wise, I try to approach it that way, and then just, see what kind of colors come out of that, instead of looking at it and saying, okay, well, I feel like definitely like, red or something. I think I usually come like, okay, well, what are the decisions that would have been made here? And then, how does that conform to what we want to convey mood wise with the space? And then, what's the, the middle ground of that, or what actually makes sense for that? Which is, kind of how we went about it also, and wanted to make sure that there were a lot of visual layers in the house. And, about a third of the movie is in kind of the protagonist's house. So that was something that going into it, I knew was going to be, that's our gigantic build. There's that. And then there's also, I don't want to give too much away, but there is kind of like there's a natural disaster. There's a scene that implies that has a lot of destruction in it. Also that we, knew that we were going to build some spaces for that would kind of match some other spaces that we had found, or kind of reference them at least, so that we had the freedom to kind of completely destroy them in a fun and cinematic way. And so, going into it with that, that was kind of I knew those were going to be like the primary kind of, stage-based challenges. And the other stuff, the location-based stuff was going to be, okay, how do we build the world of this community? It's set in a fictional town in Georgia. So, that was my other major priority, is like, okay, scouting around for these things. It's like, even if it's not in the script, what locations can I show the director? Can I show David that, might help him like visualize the world and build the world? And if they end up in there, great. And if not, then okay, at least, we can kind of all have this common, space in our head, or this common universe in our head that we can.
Did you shoot in Georgia?
We did. We shot in Atlanta. Nice. And we went to Athens to shoot some second unit stuff that was like a little bit of like some more like small town establishing, since the town in the movie is supposed to be a little bit kind of definitely smaller than Atlanta, and smaller than a lot of kind of cities in Georgia. So, and that was kind of the fun part also in the beginning, is just like, all right, so our town, I just made a document that was just like, here are like 10 different cities across the South, like ranging from like large city to like basically small town. And like, David, here are like images of each of them, and here's like the population, and here's what the police car looks like in each of them, here's what these things look like. So like, which of these do we think that our story is kind of situated in, or like where do we want to be like on this map? And then kind of straddled it that way and kind of started to get a sense of what we were kind of looking at story wise for the characters. Get into it. But we shot it all in Atlanta, which the art department crew on that was amazing. I mean, I had an amazing art director, amazing set decorator, and just amazing everybody. Like the entire art department and prop department, everything was just astonishingly good in that. Yeah. So
how long was that shoot? Like 3 months, 2 months?
I want to say it was 3 months, but it actually ended up being closer to like 8 months, I think. It's like, okay. I got there in August and started scouting, and then got there August, September, October, November, December, and then January, February, and even into like March a little bit. So it was really about 7 and change. Turned out, we shot a lot of it in Atlanta, and then went to the Dominican Republic and shot a bunch there, using the DR for Haiti. And that was really fun. And also just great. A really, amazing opportunity to be able to work there as well, with another top-notch art department that we kind of recruited from the Dominican Republic. But yeah, it ended up being closer to 7.5 months, rather than the 3 or 4 months that we initially thought it was going to be. So
that's either a nightmare or it's awesome. I've been on shows when I'm like, I just want it to end. I just want, please don't add another day, don't add another scene, please. But yeah, so I hope it was good. I hope it was a good longer shoot.
That's why it was crucial that I say the art department was so great, because it was just like, we got deeper into it. It was like, okay, cool, we're all just here for each other. And also like, I actually enjoy being around these people, and hopefully they enjoy being around me for the most part. And so it was kind of like, all right, here we go. We thought we were going to be done here, but in fact, no, we've got another month. And then, all right, we thought we were going to be done here, and no, we've got another month. So everybody just kind of charged forward the entire time.
I don't know. I feel like the ADs lied to you or something. I don't know what your one-liner was, but that doesn't it seems like someone was keeping secrets. That's a hell of a swing. But it looks, hey, it's The Exorcist. Do what you gotta do, man. Whatever you gotta do.
Exactly. I feel like there were things that came up that were just like, some things were COVID related, some things were cast related, some things were just like all kinds of logistics related that just, but yes, I was probably lied to. Certainly not in the beginning, but at certain junctures after that.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for rescheduling, and I'm glad that we got it together, because it was just fantastic to talk to you and let you know how much I appreciate that work. It's a fantastic series.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it. I'm a fan of your show, and I was a fan of a couple of recent episodes I've listened to, and Shane Fox especially. I thought that was a great.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. So I love that show too. Really fantastic to get to chat with him. He seems like such a really nice guy. And 3 years in Oklahoma, going back and forth to all of those locations and dressing and undressing. I am telling you, it's hard to do. I'm telling you, it's hard. I mean, I remember on Parks going back to April and Andy so many times, like, oof, and I don't know. It's part of the job, and I love it. But it is a lot of like the resetting of sets, and not everything's always quite the same, or maybe something got lost or broken, and that things like that happen. So it's always hard to go in and out of location. So I respect that a lot, and just really nice to connect with him, and hopefully The Exorcist isn't too scary and I can get through it, because I can't. But I am interested to see, I think it's like 2 kids, which how I feel about kids and death and stuff. So hopefully they're okay at the end. But Again, I'm really, if you don't watch Reservation Dogs, at least check it out for the design, man. It's like watching a documentary. They really captured a lot of nuances of teenagers and living, reservation life, and just really fantastic. I really enjoyed their work. So I don't know what I got coming up. What do I have coming up? I forget. I don't know. I'm tired. The Eagles won. That's all I care about. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim One Up for Decorating Pages.